I still have spouts of, just everyday, things. But I will proudly say that currently now, I think it was about maybe a month ago where I had a little bit of like, oh my gosh, I think I'm coming on with just like an episode of like just anxiousness. Right. I just buried myself in the word. And that's hard to do, even though you know the truth. And it's like, okay, I know, right? I know better. But if it weren't for me knowing that, and I guess that's what not scares me, but worries me for other people, is that because I knew where to go, if I didn't know where to go, how I would feel.
Right.
Yeah.
And you're right. It is hard to do. Why? Because life gets in the way. We have so many responsibilities, so many things, distractions. Man, the enemy wants to keep you from the word real quick, and he'll throw everything, life at you to keep you from that. But man, don't we know that when we go to God, right? And he says it, remain in me and I will remain in you. And man, he's the one that can help you through that, right? Help you overcome.
It's true. And it's what you make a priority.
Right.
Yeah.
I know it's easier said than done. It is. Right. But I'll share one thing is that I, whenever I have, something like, okay, I'm going to spend time in the word. And, it's like you said, something comes up. I remember one time there was like a weather, it was like disaster storm.
Perfect storm.
Yeah. Perfect day. It was like, it was terrible. They closed the highways and I had a hair appointment. And I was like, okay. And I called the lady. I was like, are you going to be there? She's like, yeah, I'm going to be there. And I said, okay. I left my house 2 hours early so that I could be there to get my hair done. So I always remember that, how I strategically made time and made sure that I was there.
During a perfect storm.
Yes.
Wow.
Close down roads. I was like, no, I'll get a boat. I don't know what I gotta do. So,
all the back roads. All the back roads.
This was like, don't leave. It's dangerous. I'm like, I am going. So anytime, God knows because it's an ongoing thing with him, but I'm like, oh, take a boat. Okay.
Yes.
Like if I'm gonna make all these things, risk my life to go to my hair appointment. So, anyways,
wow, that's interesting.
So I'll say this about our struggle. I think we all know that one of the enemy's most formidable weapons that he uses against us is fear, right?
Right.
Yes.
I mean, if it's not one thing, it's another. And these things, when it comes to anxiety, the enemy tries to compound multiple problems on you, not just one. And when it hits you, that's the enemy's whole job. That's the devil's job, is to kill, steal, and destroy, right?
Yes.
So when you get faced with, anxiety, as Angela did, and I can pinpoint the point when I actually had bouts with anxiety. If you are in that dark place, you just got to turn to God. I mean, to me, it's like a breath of fresh air, right? And like I said, my bout with anxiety started in about 2014. As you know, in our job, Chris, whenever we promote, it is a higher class of
expectations.
Well, it's a promotion, but it's also you have to start all over.
Okay.
In seniority wise, so where did they send me? My first job as a detective on the department was to go to dog watch, right?
Night.
So my body was not used to nights. I had never worked nights in my whole entire career, and I remember the first couple of months was okay. I was able to get through it. And then about that third or fourth month, I remember beginning to have problems with sleeping. I did not know what the heck was going on. So I'd get to bed, I'd get out of work at around 6:30, I'd get home around 7, and my body, I'd fall asleep for about 3 or 4 hours, and I'd be awake at about 11, right? And Angela remembers this because at the same time, we're talking about perfect storm. We had our son, our blessing, who is our son. He was struggling with his, diagnosis. We had just had our second daughter, Olivia. So Angela was a full-time mommy duties. And here I am, not being there or available. And I'm struggling with my sleep anxiety at the time. And I remember just being drowning. I guess that's a good word for it, drowning. And I remember one time, I have always known God. I've always known that, there was always a way out for me. And I remember going to church one night. Angela was feeling sick. She had the children, so she stayed home. And I was like, you know what? I work tonight, but I'm going to go to church tonight. At that time, we had a Saturday night service. So I remember going to church. And of course, most churches start off with praise and worship. And This was around 2014. That song in 2013, Oceans came out.
Okay. Yes.
No
My
song
favorite
United.
song. Yes.
Well, in 2014, most praise and worship teams were already playing this song in most of their worship services. And I remember hearing this song, and I was like, "Oh my God!" Like,
It hit you.
snap me out. Like, I mean, those were the words that I needed to hear. The deliverance from fear, that the enemy is constantly putting on top of us. And to hear that message is where I kind of started. And, I'd like to say everything's perfect, right? Now, but, we are human and we are in a world where we're still going to experience pain and suffering. But I can tell you what, as Angela said earlier, just diving into the word and just looking for those, extra, scripture that just deliver us from that, that little voice telling us not to believe. When it's right there in front of us.
So two things that you shared, worship, right? That at that moment you needed to hear something. And I think many times, maybe some listeners out there can, that are going to church, we tend to overlook that, or we miss out on worship because we're busy running around or we're running late to church, right? Where it's that one weekend where you woke up late and you're running to church. So you maybe miss out worship, but you're there for the message. But man, we've talked about this many times, that worship, you can receive from the worship, you can receive from the message, you can receive from just serving. So when we miss out on church, we can miss out on different little nuggets or different things that God puts in our path, so we can get ahead or get out of whatever funk we're in. And worship was there a key for you that helped you break and overcome at that moment. And then the second thing that stood out, you used the word fear. And in our line of duty, we face that all the time, right? In our career fields, because it's the unknown, right? It's always the unknown. So that's fear tends to always get a hold of us. But one thing that we've learned about fear is false evidence appearing real.
Right.
Or face everything and rise.
Yeah.
And those are the choices that we have. We
Versus
can
faith.
either sink down and have a little pity party, or allow fear to really grab a hold of us, or we face everything and rise. And again, it's false evidence appearing real. So when we realize, when we get into the truth, when we get into his word, we know that God has a plan and a purpose. And another thing you just said, God always gives us a way out. It's up to us to search for that way out.
Yes, man. You talked about, of course, face everything and rise, but you know what fear wants us to focus on is to fear everything and run. He wants you to deny. He wants you to run away from the problem, right? And focus on that versus on focusing on God. Let me tell you, that is my favorite song, Oceans. I have a lot of favorite songs, but this one is dear to my heart. And I could see how during praise and worship, and I'm just getting goosebumps right now, okay? Because I could see how just hearing the words, and I'm not a singer, so I ain't gonna sing the song, okay? You don't want to hear me sing. You're gonna be like, "Fuera!" right? Okay, but I just want to share the words of the song, because I could see how this song just touched you in a great and mighty way.
I was
bawling. I could see it.
And nobody's ever seen me. She's never seen me cry other than for when my daughter was born. So I was glad that I was by myself.
You weren't embarrassed. You're like, thank God she was sick. She wasn't here.
I just remember the usher bringing up Kleenexes to me. It's what I needed.
Yes,
Right,
yes. It says this: "You call me out upon the waters, the great unknown, where feet may fail. And there I find you in the mystery in oceans deep. My faith will stand. And I will call upon your name and keep my eyes above the waves. When oceans rise, my soul will rest in your embrace. For I am yours and you are mine." We just talked about, right? Remain in me and I will remain in you, right? We know that that's what John chapter 15, that's what Jesus is talking about, the vine. And you said something, Angela, right? You're like, man, I know Jesus. I know who my Lord and Savior is. But man, I knew who to run to. I knew who to go to. But I feel bad for the people that don't know who to run to and who to go to. The people that have not had that encounter with Christ, right? So that's something that we want to, help connect you to your faith, or help connect you to there's a resource, and we know that the number one resource, the number one therapist is Jesus. There's a lot of other resources that can help, with that. But I'm glad that you shared that.